Jordan and Gretzky, Serena and Ruth. Remembering great ones is easy to do. But what about the no-names who spent their whole lives long snapping footballs and catching sack flies? They're guys, remember that guy. Remember that guy, remember that guy, remember that guy, remember that guy. They're just gonna remember some guys now.
That's why I don't read the newspaper, because it's garbage. And the editor that let it come out is garbage. Attacking an amateur athlete for doing everything right. And then you want to write articles about guys that don't do things right and downgrading the ones that do make plays. Are you kidding me? Where are we at in society today? Come after me. I'm a man. I'm Remember That Guy, the show we might remember for nuggets of nostalgia about peripheral players, past and present. Hey there, folks. It is me, one of your hosts, James, here with somebody who is definitely not 40.
Not 40. Closer to 40 than Mike Gundy is now, which is like really crazy to think about. Diaz back with you once again.
Closer to being the OSU head coach than Mike Gundy is right now.
That it's, we're equal. One of my favorite things to say ever is that, each of us on this podcast have more career receiving yards than Brett Favre. Things like that are very fun to say. But I have another very fun thing to say, and it is that we have a very special guest. He is not Mike Gundy, but he is the second winningest coach in the history of the Oklahoma State Cowboys football program. Please introduce yourself.
It's a really low bar. Just by having a 0, I'm actually technically still second behind Mike Gundy. Somehow everyone has negatives. But, I watched the last game, the Tulsa-Oklahoma State game, because I watch pretty much every American Conference game because I'm a homer. It was great for Tulsa. Awesome for Tulsa. Crazy to think that Mike Gundy had been there for over 20 years, that the "oh man, I'm 40" speech happened 2 decades ago.
Those players are 40 now. All of those players are now 40
now. Yes. But the even crazier thing about it was, obviously everyone knew the writing was on the wall when he complained about Oregon having way too much money before the first game of the season. When Oklahoma State, as a university, was completely meaningless until T. Boone Pickens gave them unlimited money. Like, they were the first university that became, like, an actual thing because of booster money. And for them to be complaining about it now is, very cyclical, very, very funny. They need to have another oil baron come from their school to get back to relevance.
They need Saudi money. They go where the oil money is at all times. They need to get the monetary investment fund in on it.
They start sending out flyers to Riyadh, like, come to Oklahoma State University in Stillwater, Oklahoma. Learn everything you need to know about oil.
Well, I think I know as much as I need to know about oil right now. What I need to know more about is what's making memories for you guys right now.
Yeah, so I'll go first. Did either of you guys hear about Tom Cillo?
I don't think I even know that name.
Nor do I.
So, Tom Cillo is a 58-year-old man who was a powerlifting champion. And he recently joined the roster of D-III Lycoming College in Lycoming, Pennsylvania, to play football.
I'm disappointed I forgot the name, because I did hear about, the 58-year-old D-III player.
Yes, and I should say technically it's in Williamsport, not Lycoming, before anyone complains about that. But
right now Williamsport has a 58-year-old D-III player and the Little League World Series.
It's a great town, Williamsport. I would never go ever, but good for them. Covering all age ranges. But the story about Tom Cillo is interesting in that he was a basketball player in high school, apparently was pretty good, and was going to go to school and possibly play college sports. And then he started drinking alcohol, which is a problem that unfortunately many people have. Essentially wasted his teens and early 20s, got away from things, turned his life around in his mid-20s, became a power lifter, broke a record by lifting 580 pounds last year, the world record for the 55 to 59 age group. And then he called up a friend of his who used to be a weightlifting partner and was a member of the Lycoming College Board of Trustees and said, hey, I want to come play football for you guys. And eventually convinced him to let him enroll. And he is now enrolled in college, having a second shot at college. He has not played yet, but he is one of 11 freshman D linemen on that team. He is triple the age of the other freshman D linemen. But it sounds like he's been working really hard and is in great shape, like just great shape in general, not great shape for a 58-year-old, and could possibly see the field this year, which would make him the oldest person to play NCAA football since 2009, when a 61-year-old kicker played for D-III Austin College's last game of the season. Not counting kickers, he could possibly be the oldest person to ever play NCAA football.
He's 17 years older than Brandon Whedon. I just looked it up now. He is 17 years older than like the very first thing I think of when I think of old-ass college player. And I'm saying 17 years older now, today. Brandon Whedon is only 41. This guy could have conceivably been going to college the first time when Brandon Whedon was born.
I love stories like this because it's never too late. I'm still waiting for the story in 15 years about Diaz going back to school to play college basketball as a three-point specialist 45-year-old.
I still have 4 years of eligibility. I haven't used any of them yet.
The chances are higher than zero is all I will say about that. But I wanted to start with the nice, wholesome one, because the real thing I want to talk about is a little sadder. There's a really, really good article in The Athletic about John Abraham. Do either of you remember John Abraham?
Defensive end?
Yes. So John Abraham was one of the Jets' 4 first-round picks in 2000. He was defensive end out of South Carolina, ended up making All-Pro, multiple Pro Bowls with the Jets before being traded to the Falcons, where he made 2 other first-team All-Pros and a couple other Pro Bowls, and then had 2 years with the Cardinals, where he also made Pro Bowl. Really, really good player. He was always kind of a what-if with the Jets of, like, they got rid of him so early. Like, what if they still had him on those 2009, 2010 teams? Could that have gotten them over the hump to the Super Bowl? And I learned a lot about John Abraham that I never would have expected. First off, he goes by Tony. He did not go by John and does not like being called John Abraham. His name is actually John Antonio, and he was Tony until a teacher said there was another Tony and wanted to refer to him as John. He still does not like being called John. But that's not that's the silly part of it. The more morose part of it is when he was 7, he watched his father, who went by Man, was not very much of a father to John Abraham or Tony Abraham. He watched as Man came and stomped his puppy to death in front of him. Turns out his family was insanely fucked up, where his dad or his father Man was essentially a monster, abused the crap out of the family, had a very toxic relationship with John's mother, Maggie Lee, who, because Man was supported financially by Maggie Lee, did not want John Abraham to become like that, and so was intentionally cold and unfeeling to John Abraham his whole life, saying, I don't want you to rely on me the way your father did, so I'm not going to tell you I loved you ever or even treat you like a person your whole life. And this fucks people up. He eventually plays basketball and track in South Carolina, sets high school records, and then plays football his senior year, only his senior year of high school. And he's so good that Clemson wants him, and he wants to go to Clemson. And then a recruiter from South Carolina comes, sees that Maggie Lee is very religious, and during his recruiting pitch, apparently just says amen and hallelujah a lot. And because of that, Maggie Lee says, if you go to Clemson, I'm never visiting you. You're essentially out of my life. You have to go to South Carolina. Forces him to go to South Carolina to keep his mother in his life. And from there, things spiral for John Abraham. He has a couple good years, but in college and in the professional game, he's introduced to alcohol for the first time, essentially to fit in with the partying atmosphere, starts drinking, starts trying to reconnect with his father, gets drunk with his father, then his father asks him for money, tries reconnecting again, and his father essentially tries to extort him again, and along with multiple concussions, this leads to John Abraham trying to kill himself. He gives away all of his possessions, thinks about jumping off of his balcony. The reason he gets traded from the Falcons and cut by the Cardinals is because he's in a self-destructive spiral. Until he goes to therapy. And therapy saved John Abraham's life. He has spent the last couple of years essentially atoning for all of the bad things that happened during his professional career when he was spiraling. I'll say that this isn't a super happy ending and that his relationship with his mother is still bad. Man is dead, so he is out of the picture. But it does look like things are improving for John Abraham. Go to therapy if you need it. Do not... People will pressure you for things. It is hard to escape the pressure. It is important to talk to people about it. So I want to shout out John Abraham. His life was way more difficult than I ever could have imagined. All I'd ever thought about him was, oh, he was great with the Jets. Wish we could have kept him. But I'm just happy that it seems like he's doing better now. And I hope that everyone knows that if you are struggling, talk to someone. It does help. So sorry for the downer. Do either of you have like happy things to talk about?
I mean, I'll just jump right in with the Delaware Blue Hens. Perhaps the second favorite college football team of this podcast. I think it would be fair to say we have to put our Owls first.
College football, yes. I still care a lot about the Hopkins lacrosse team. I'm not proud of that.
Of course,
might be third for me.
Oh, who you put ahead
Army?
of
Army?
Army. Army's fair. Army's fair. I'm a Navy man, but
I'm going to the game. I think with my dad in a month, which would be nice.
Go Navy, beat Army. But yes, Delaware football, the Blue Hens.
The Blue Hens are doing pretty darn good. The opener, Delaware State, they're expected to win. It was the head coaching debut of one Deshaun Jackson. The Hornets hung in there. They did pretty well. Hornets are having a nice little season themselves, by the way. But despite this being their first season in FBS, that's still an FCS opponent. Next week, UConn winning a thriller in overtime. They then go to Colorado, or I think they went to Colorado week 2. Only lost by 21 at Colorado, which I think is a hell of an accomplishment for a first-year program in FBS. And then what did they do this 2 weekends ago as you listen? They go down to Miami, they pay a visit to Pitbull Stadium, and they beat the shit out of Florida International. They just demolish them. And like, look, I'll say the same thing for Delaware that I said for Temple this year. Why can't they win 7 games? There's no reason they can't win 7 games. I see 7 wins happening. I see one more of those wins coming this weekend against Western Kentucky. At home, at the Tub, in Newark, Delaware, where you can pee on the wall in the men's bathroom. And that's just the way you do it. Nobody can even say anything to you. It's totally legal. Nobody can stop you.
I mean, it's the same thing at Penn. They just make it look fancier. In both of those stadiums, you're just pissing on a wall.
But, Delaware just does it better. It feels like a wall you're supposed to be peeing on it. Penn,
it's
you're like,
honest.
That was a little too nice.
It's not trying to put on airs. Look, here's the pissing wall.
Here's the pissing wall. The water's running steady the whole time. You don't have to feel bad about it. Please come piss on our wall. Please come to Delaware Stadium. Come to the Tub and watch the Blue Hens beat the Hilltoppers, right? That's what Western Kentucky is, the Hilltoppers.
Yeah.
Which is a great mascot.
The Tub is so good.
The Tub, of course, for Tubby Raymond, of course, the employer of offensive coordinating legend Ted Kempsky. Go Hens, man. They're looking great.
Here's my question to you, Diaz. Which of your 2 favorite college football bird teams finishes with more wins? University of Delaware or Temple University?
You see,
it's an interesting question.
I think I'm gonna do like kind of a spinoff of Animal Farm.
Okay.
Both teams will have 7 wins, but Delaware will have more 7 wins.
I think Delaware will have more wins because I think their schedule is much easier than Temple's.
Right. Well, the CUSA is worse than the American. I think that's not a controversial statement. I
think Temple might win 5 games this year. I'll be honest. I think they're just going to miss getting that bowl eligibility.
They're gonna win 7, but Delaware's gonna win more 7.
It just means more. It's the debut season. It's a big deal. I'm very excited for it. Something else that I'm excited on that's going right now is the UCI Worlds. No one wants to hear about cycling that badly, but just some quick information. It's going on Kigali, Rwanda. This is the first time they're holding the Worlds in Africa. So I knew that there was a big cycling culture in Eritrea. Recently I learned one of those is wrong. I don't remember which one, but I knew that that was the one African nation that did have a big cycling culture. Did not realize that the crowds of Rwanda would be as massive as they've been, which is great.
2 dictatorships.
Hey man, I'm not thrilled that the Worlds are there, but hey, people are going to pretend that we're not a dictatorship when they come for the Olympics and the World Cup. We can shut the fuck up. In the time trial, Poggi had made some moves as if he was Poggi was never going to win the time trial. Evan Poel ran away with it again, and he is the primary Belgian rider that's going to be competing in the road race single day championship, because that's why I want to just bring up the Worlds for a quick second. It is fun because it is the one time during this calendar where they really abandon teams and go to nationalities instead. And so a lot of the competitors, like Evan Poel is a top competitor. I don't think Vingegaard is riding. Pogačar obviously is the favorite. But a bunch of Pogačar's UAE teammates, because UAE is such a stacked team, are the top competitors for other countries, like Isaac Del Toro, who nearly won the Giro d'Italia, is going to be Mexico's top competitor. And then Juan Ayuso, who was kind of their lead rider in the Vuelta a España. He is going to be the top Spanish rider. Pogačar will have Roglic, who's a very good Slovenian rider who is not normally a teammate of his. There will still be support from Slovenia, but it's just always interesting to see things shake up for this. I'd be very surprised if Pogačar does not win another one. It is now. We are entering autumn. The summer is coming to an end. And I just, for the last bit of making memories, want to talk about how Victor Wembanyama spent his summer vacation. Because, man, it is incredible that a 7'3" forward with an 8-foot wingspan, who is also just a handling prodigy, he is all of this, and the basketball is the least interesting thing about him. Just to recap some things that he did. In his hometown, back in July, he hosted his own combination 3x3 basketball tournament and chess tournament, and, played in both many of the attendees. That is a month after, in June, he went to a Shaolin temple to undergo a 10-day stay, granting him a Shaolin Kung Fu rank, the initiate rank within that monastery's tradition. Bonkers. Shaved his head for that. Last month, he spearheaded and personally attended the tryouts for the Spurs soccer-style fan section, deciding, after being in France again, that was an initiative that the San Antonio Spurs needed to pursue. And then just recently, he revealed a cameo as Wembanyama in a new episode of Futurama, where he is a friend. Bubblegum Tate, I think, is the Harlem Globetrotter that shows up all the time. So Victor Wembanyama is there. In fact, I guess he enjoyed that so much that he decided he's going to star in and produce his own basketball-themed sci-fi cartoon that will be airing in France called Alien Dunk. He's also at some point, I guess, going to play basketball this year. But this just goes back to the thing that I think I've said here and in many of our chats. It's not about the titles. Nothing should ever be about the titles. If you make sports about the titles, you're going to be miserable the vast majority of the time. It's about connecting with dudes that do dope shit and just loving that. And it is so wild that, again, this guy who on the basketball court does incredibly dope shit. I'm so excited to watch Victor Wembanyama play basketball. And also, if he decided tomorrow that he was never going to play another game, I would remain a very big fan of his for just whatever else he's going to do. Love Victor Wembanyama. Go Spurs, go.
I will never tire of watching his highlights. It is it's comical. It's the uncle playing on the 8-foot hoop with all the kids at the family party.
Yes, it does very much feel okay, hey, you can't do that to them.
It's just not fair. I once saw him block a free throw jumper while standing in the restricted area. It's not fucking fair. It's absurd. I love him. I love him so much. I disagree with your statement. I would be so angry at him if he retired.
and that's fine. That's fine. I love my relationship with Victor Wembanyama, and I expect to root for him for many, many years to come for my favorite franchise. That, however, is not the kind of guy that we are talking about this season. We are talking, once again, folks, about cameo guys. Guys well known in a particular place for a particularly delightful season during an otherwise unaffiliated with that location career. I think if you put enough hyphens in there, that would work out if you wrote it. Anywho, I'm the one presenting on a cameo guy this day, and as always, I love starting with a little question. My friends, my trivia question to you: if you search for all players in Major League Baseball history who made at least 50% of their starts at the designated hitter position, who do you think are the top three?
What's the Mariners guy's name? Shit.
Martinez.
Mm-hmm. Edgar Martinez is second. Edgar Martinez is second with 68.4. Big Papi is third with 55. Here's the hint I'll give you for number one.
Is it John Allrood?
It is not. It is someone I did not realize had started 50% of their games at designated hitter. This is just like when you realize that Tim Duncan played more games at center than power forward. More well known as a first baseman. Think like big slugger in late 90s, mid 2000s.
Fred McGriff.
Not Fred McGriff. Take those first two letters, though. Last call before I reveal that it is Frank Thomas. Frank Thomas apparently started 50% or more of his games at DH. So it's those three: 73.8 for Frank Thomas, 68.4 for Edgar Martinez, David Ortiz 55, and those three are all in the Hall of Fame. Inarguably, if we were considering Frank Thomas a designated hitter, which I guess we are, the three best designated hitters of all time. And then the very next person, separated from David Ortiz by less than he is separated from Edgar Martinez, is none other than my guy today, Nelson Boomstick Cruz. A follow-up question. Do either of you guys know which Latin American country Nelson Cruz hails from?
I think he's...
Picture his WBC uniform, because he has played for this team many times in the WBC.
I'm 50-50 between Dominican and Venezuelan.
You said the correct one in that too, so I will give you Dominican. He is Dominican.
Okay, I was overthinking it.
He's Dominican from the Monte Cristi region. Not a huge economic region, but notable in baseball. They have Ozzie Virgil Sr. hailing from there. That is the first ever Dominican to play. And then they have Juan Marichal, who was, a Hall of Famer. So those two, Tony Pena, also from this area. And then on July 1st, 1980, thanks to a birth in the town of Las Matas de Santa Cruz, Nelson Cruz also joins that list. He has two loves when he's growing up. He loves fixing cars and basketball. You will notice neither of those are baseball. We will get to that in a moment. But to start, he is interested in fixing cars and basketball. The fixing cars comes from the elder members of his family. His dad is primarily a teacher, and he goes to school for this reason, keeps up with, in particular, history classes, which is what his dad teaches. But there is a teacher's strike at one point, and that's when his dad starts working in a mechanic's shop with his uncle, Nelson Cruz's uncle, that is. So starting at the age of 9, Nelson, too, joins them, primarily working on tractors. That's what he learned to drive on, tractors versus cars. Still loves them dearly to this day. And because he is working and going to school regularly, does not stop attending it, he fixes this around his second love, basketball, because the basketball courts have lights. And so he can still go play basketball after work and after school. Gets pretty good, ends up playing for the national junior team. And then finally, around his late teen years, he's finished up with school. He's got a little bit more free time in the daytime. He's been playing baseball. You can't avoid playing baseball to some extent in the Dominican. And once he starts taking it a little bit more seriously, very quickly starts to get some attention. Eventually, in 1998, he's going to sign as an international free agent with the New York Mets. This is when he enters the professional ranks of baseball. And he becomes very well-traveled before he even reaches the majors, even if he is someone that'll later have appearances in many places in the majors. He has 3 years with that Mets organization that first signs him, spending a lot of time in the Dominican Summer League. And then in August of 2000, he is traded to the still Oakland Athletics because the Mets desperately need a shortstop. That is because Melvin Mora and Mike Bordick, a fellow Orioles legend, are both hurt, so they can't play shortstop for the Mets at that point, who employ them. So they desperately trade for a shortstop from the Athletics. Nelson Cruz is a kind of prospect throw-in in that deal. And now he spends 4 years working his way up through the Oakland system until in winter 2004, still hasn't reached the majors yet, despite having prodigious power numbers. he is traded to Milwaukee and again spends most of the year in the minors. But finally, September 17th, 2005, he enters as a defensive replacement, which is, I just think, very funny given how Nelson Cruz's career will go later, in particular with some of his most notable moments. But he's a late inning defensive replacement, making his MLB debut, eventually finishing that 2005 season with 1 hit in just 5 at-bats, 2 walks.
I was going to say at first, like a true Moonlight Graham rookie season, but he did get 5 more at-bats than Moonlight.
Yeah, he is in a couple games. And then he heads back to the minors again, meaning he has now spent time his last 7 years since signing as an international free agent. He's been in the Dominican Summer League, Arizona Complex League. He's been in Vancouver. He's been in Kane County, Illinois. He's been in Modesto, California, Midland, Texas, Sacramento, Huntsville, Alabama, Nashville, Milwaukee, and then he is once again traded at the 2006 deadline to the DFW area. This is when he becomes a member of his second major league team, and the first one he'll really become associated with, the Texas Rangers.
I have to say, that's a lot of places that suck, and like one place that's cool. I'll let the listener guess which one I think is cool.
Is it the Cream City? Milwaukee seems cool. I bet I'd have a good time in Milwaukee.
Oh, I was going Vancouver.
Vancouver also looks like it would whip ass. I'm going to give Milwaukee credit. Everyone I know who's visited says it's great. I cannot speak to that personally, though. At this point, again, I said he's had a lot of pop across all minor league levels. He has played 745 games. Not really a number you want to reach if you're hoping to have a long major league career. But during that time, he has slashed 297, 369 nice, 536, a 904 OPS, and 156 minor league home runs. A little more than 1 every 5 games. The hit tool is there, but he has not gotten a chance to showcase it yet. And finally, that starts to change here in Texas. This is when he gets more sustained time in the 2006 season. He gets his first grand slam. He gets an inside the park home run. He's hitting all manner of home runs to try and finally show that he has a hit tool, but it is just not enough to catch on with this pretty loaded Rangers offense, to be fair. From 2006 to 2008, this is a core that's going to have, Josh Hamilton is here, Ian Kinsler is here, Adrian Beltre comes later on, a very strong offensive Texas core. And so from 2006 to 2008, he only appears in 168 games. Over those 3 years, basically 1 full season's worth. He does have 22 home runs, but he has an OPS plus of only 92. He's a slightly below league average hitter during those first initial years. And he's getting up there in years at this point. This is coming 10 years after he signed as an international free agent. He is 27. He's quote unquote entering his prime, as we used to kind of look at those ages, but he hasn't had that much lead up to this prime. And then he actually gets DFA'd again ahead of that last year. He's out of options. They have to go on to waivers, and he clears waivers. Any team could have had him for $20,000 at the time. And now he adds another city to his passport, goes to the AAA Oklahoma Redhawks in Oklahoma City. And this is huge because here is where he meets Mike Boulanger. And I don't know if he actually pronounces it the French way, but I like saying Boulanger as a French pronunciation. So Mike,
it's going to be a Boulanger. If you talk about Boulanger.
Well, if I say Mike Belanger, I'm saying the dark negative Wario cousin of Mark Belanger, who is a longtime Oriole. So I don't want to believe that exists. I want to believe in Mike Boulanger being the hitting coach of the Oklahoma Redhawks. Whatever his pronunciation of his name is, he has a fix for Nelson Cruz. He gets him to massively open up his stance. He'd been really kind of hunched over the plate, closed off prior to this. Opens it way up, and beyond affecting the swing, Cruz will say later, really what this did was just have both of his eyes stay on the ball for a much longer period of time coming to the plate. His pitch recognition just goes way up. He's always going to, be a kind of 3 true outcomes guy. He strikes out a lot, but this is just a world of difference in terms of how he's seeing the ball. He has a 1024 OPS in the minors the rest of the way, nabs the PCL MVP honors, and then returns to the bigs for good in August of that year. And now from 2009 to 2013, he becomes a major part of that Ron Washington-led Texas Rangers that I mentioned before. 2009, he is a replacement all-star for Torrey Hunter and a home run derby participant, and that book ends during this whole period, 2013, with his second all-star appearance. 10.7 B WAR during that period. He's a good DH. Sometimes in the corner outfield, he's fine. And this is a time where he's long beloved in a place. It's not a cameo, but I do want to highlight the 2 World Series seasons because he has a pretty big part in both of them. In 2010, that regular season is a career low K rate. It is his best quote-unquote full season of at least 100 games or more at the plate. He has a 146 OPS plus. That's a career high to that point. Helps the Rangers win their first ever pennant during his playoff run. He has 6 home runs in 16 games. This is the first time that he starts calling his bat the boomstick, which will kind of later become his own nickname, which I don't love because it's him kind of giving himself a nickname, which I'm always kind of against. I don't know where you guys stand on that, but like it's got to come a little more naturally. But they are incredible until they get to the Giants and they lose in the World Series, but it's an incredible playoff run for him in that debut. And then 2011, poor regular season stats, but he saves all of it for the ALCS. I said 6 home runs in 16 games in that last one. He equals that total in the series in this 2011 postseason, wins ALCS MVP honors, and they make it to the World Series for the second time. 8 total home runs for him in that full postseason. That does tie him with Bonds and Beltran for the most in a single postseason. However, it is not the most memorable fly ball for him. He has been in left field and right field most of the time to this point for the Rangers. And that's eventually going to become untenable, but the DH spot has been filled by Michael Young this whole time, and in particular in Game 6, they are at Busch Stadium. This is the National League. They do still have no designated hitter, and so if they want Nelson Cruz's bat, he has to be in the lineup, which means he has to be in right field. And the Rangers are up by 2 runs with 2 outs in the 9th when David Freese of the St. Louis Cardinals hits a fly ball that Cruz misplays. It's not called an error. This is officially called a triple. If you go back to the game long look for it, there are like 5 errors in this game not involving this play, but this one is not ruled an error. However, it is Nelson Cruz misplaying this ball pretty badly. The 2-out RBI leads them to tie the game. They win Game 6. They come back to win Game 7. Basically, Nelson Cruz dropped the game-winning catch for the World Series for the Texas Rangers, which is now, I mean, they've got their World Series, and it came at the expense of one of the best Orioles teams ever, so hopefully they're over it.
That's the thing I hate about baseball, in that
Right.
if you don't touch the ball in the outfield, it's a hit. It doesn't matter how badly you misplay it. You could be staring at it, thinking someone else is going to get it, and it drops an inch in front of you without having moved, and it's a hit if the outfield doesn't touch it. That's just the rule that they've taken. And like, we don't do that for the infield. If it's clearly at you and you just whiff, it's still an error. And I don't know why it's the same for baseball. Or for the outfield, I should say.
I was going to say that. And then also, like, I mean, like, what bothered me so much about that play is, like, I think there was very much an element of he thought, like, it was partly that he thought the wall was closer, but it was also partly that he could have, like, ran into the wall to catch it, and he didn't.
It has
and, like,
the appearance of less effort.
Sure, yeah, and like, look, self-preservation instinct, I get it, but like, you know, on the flip side, a Phillies cameo guy, he played 2 seasons, so he wouldn't qualify, but like Aaron Rowand played 2 seasons here, and he's beloved because he ran into the wall to make a catch in like a game in April. So it's like, you know, that's kind of the flip side of the Nelson Cruz thing.
I mean, I think that is, despite the production that he has for Texas during this stretch, he is very good, again, from 2009 to 13, but that is kind of what he's remembered for. Just to fly through the last bit, he is part of the Texas team that then in 2012 loses in the very first ever wild card game to the Baltimore Orioles. Shout out Joe Saunders, the winning pitcher from that game. And then he has that 2013 All-Star appearance that I mentioned. And then, just a couple weeks after that, still in the 2013 season, he becomes one of 13 players to receive a 50 or more game suspension in the Guy-ogenesis Scandal. This was a health clinic in Florida that came under scrutiny when it was tied to a trio of 2012 guys that had all tested positive for PEDs, Bartolo Colon, Melky Cabrera, and Yasmani Grandal. It is kind of like kicks off the investigation into Anthony Bosch. That was the big name with the clinic. The biggest player name on that side is Alex Rodriguez. He will eventually receive a full season suspension because he fights it more and because he's already been dinged at this point. But they also get Cruz, they get Ryan Braun, they get 2 of Cruz's fellow 2013 All-Stars, which I remember like people saying, there's 3 people on the 2013 All-Star team. Like, that is You raise eyebrows when there are PEDs and there are three guys who don't have, at this point, a huge number of combined All-Star appearances all making it that year. This also includes wrestler Big Show and a number of LeBron trainers. LeBron is fully cleared of any involvement, but I did not realize that there was a LeBron element to the Guy-ogenesis scandal until I went back. All in all, like I said, 13 players received suspensions. That is the most in one go in almost 100 years, going back to the Black Sox scandal. Cruz does serve his 50-game suspension from August 4th to September 30th. They bring him back, Texas, for one final game. I don't know if that was a respect thing. I don't know if that was like, let me show you off one more time before free agency thing. For whatever reason, Cruz does get that final game and goes 0 for 4 with a strikeout. So Texas does give him the qualifying offer, but he turns it down, as pretty much everyone was at this point.
So they got a pick. That's great.
The thing I will say for Guy-ogenesis as a drug scandal is at least that's a cool name for a drug scandal place. Like Balco sounds like it's like Rico. It's like
when you see it all caps. When you see Balco all caps,
laboratory corporation, was it?
Probably.
Yes, yeah, something like that. And what was the guy's name? Because he had a cooler name.
Victor Conti.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say that's a lame name. I like the name of the other guy better.
Anthony Bosch.
Yeah, Anthony Bosch. I love
Anthony Bosch flows. Yeah. And Xavier, yes, as you said, the fact that he now has a qualifying offer tied to him, you add that to the PED suspension. You add that to what you could term a decline since 2010, with the exception of 2013, but he's been dinged for steroids for that one. He's almost 33. He's got that draft pick compensation. He is not the most attractive free agent going into this offseason. And there are plenty of names if you want to get it back. Robinson Cano is the biggest one on here. He eventually goes to the Seattle Mariners, your 2025 AL West champions. Shout out. Jacoby Ellsbury is out there. Mike Napoli, Carlos Beltran, Curtis Granderson. Like, if you want a 33-year-old, just go get Curtis Granderson. Shin-Soo Choo. There's a bunch of bats out there, which means we get to spring training in February. And those guys are all off the board, where Nelson Cruz still remains. The PEDs are a big thing, but to go to that draft pick compensation, just to remember, folks, like Johnny Peralta, he signed all the way back there with those PEDs. Teams did not care about the PEDs. They cared about the draft pick compensation that made the qualifying offer a poison pill at this point, because if you signed a player during this broken QO system that had one of those qualifying offers tied to him, you lose your first round pick for anyone that has a qualifying offer tied to them. And so has been fixed now because everyone realized it was broken. It's completely fucked. And you then will keep losing picks if you draft them. But that does mean that if a team finally gets over themselves and signs someone with a qualifying offer, it is at least less toxic to sign additional players with the qualifying offers. You're a little bit less penalized. It becomes a little bit more appetizing. And so there was a similar pitcher who'd been languishing this whole offseason, Ubaldo Jimenez, who had just had a great second half with Cleveland, but had a lot of questions about his performance and had this draft pick compensation tied to him. Then finally a certain team says, you know what? We're going to take this questionable pitcher. We're going to give him 4 years, $50 million on February 19th. And that same team figures, fuck it. Let's go get Nelson Cruz. And so 5 days later, he signs a 1-year, $8 million deal with the Baltimore Orioles. The Orioles are in the midst at this point of really the only competitive stretch beyond the 96-97 blip since the 80s, and certainly the first one of my lifetime. In 2012, they had won that wildcard game against Cruz's Rangers in their first playoffs since 1997. Then they miss it in 13, despite an 85-77 record. Had huge breakout years, though, for Manny Machado and that year's home run leader, Chris Davis, who had given Maris a run for his money for a little bit. So the hope for 2014 rests on the bats. The pitchers are not great. I love them. I love Chris Tillman. I love Mike Gonzalez. I love Wayne Chen. I love Kevin Gausman. It's not that Kevin Gausman at this point, and none of the rest of the dudes are names that if you didn't live in Baltimore, you probably heard of before now. Though I will say Chris Tillman, one-time All-Star, can't take that away from him. It's not a great pitching staff, but Davis just led the league in home runs. The core has guys like Adam Jones, Nick Markakis, Matt Wieters, who have all made All-Star appearances at this point, Manny Machado, this up-and-coming talent. J.J. Hardy's coming in. He's going to end up being huge. They've got a great bullpen with Zach Britton and Darren O'Day. And then for 2 months, everything about this team is just fucked. Once again, Wieters has a hot start, and then he gets hurt. A catcher getting Tommy John, or any position player getting Tommy John, is just always a little bit bonkers. He's going down. Chris Davis is a below average hitter. The rotation looks exactly like you would imagine a rotation built around number 3 and number 4 starters is doing. By June, they are 30-29. They're 6.5 back in the East. It looks like it's going to be just kind of another mediocre season, but there is a theme to this year. Do you know who the B-War leader for this team is by any chance?
Well, if you're asking, then it's not Manny Machado. It's not Chris Davis.
It's not.
It's not Nelson Cruz either, is it?
It's not Nelson Cruz. It's not Nick Markakis. It's not JJ Hardy. It's not Matt Wieters. It's not even people we've talked about before on this team. It's not any of those pitchers. It's Steve Pearce. With 5.8 B-War, his future Red Sox World Series MVP, and Guy, Steve Pearce. Because this season is about dudes filling in. Steve Pearce just comes in and plays like first base when Chris Davis is out at times, third base at times, and other people are suffering injuries. Steve Pearce just plays everywhere, having by far the best season of his career. Caleb Joseph, who we've discussed before on this show, when Matt Wieters goes down, we bring in this career AA guy, and Caleb Joseph all of a sudden becomes like a delightful part of that season and like a real productive catcher, despite being, a balding man having his rookie season in the majors. You've got Chris Tillman only gets the All-Star game because he's filling in for Justin Verlander. At every point, this team is just about filling in. And filling the power gap left in the void of 2013 Chris Davis is Nelson Cruz. Nelson Cruz, a year after Chris Davis leads the majors in homers, goes ahead and as a member of the Orioles leads the majors in homers with 40. He has, for what it's worth, New Jersey number 23, and this seems to do it for him. He becomes the All-Star designated hitter this year, ties Adam Jones for the team leader in games, plays in 159 games this season, and he is, as I mentioned, the home run leader for the majors with 40 altogether. This is, at this point, a career high for him in B-War. 4.5 with almost every single one of his games at this point at the designated hitter position. The one thing they have acknowledged that the Rangers did not, hey, Nelson, we ain't putting you in the field unless we need to, dude. Like, other people get rest days at DH and he goes out every once in a while. But this is when Nelson Cruz truly becomes a designated hitter. And it ends up getting him his first ever MVP votes. He finishes 7th overall. And, I mean, he has no first place votes whatsoever. But he finishes respectably in this leaderboard. And it is enormous for the Baltimore Orioles, who win the AL East by 12 games after trailing by 6.5 as late as early June. Cruz plays in the 2014 ALDS. This allows him with a couple more home runs to pass Babe Ruth and tie Carlos Beltran at 9th all-time at this point in postseason home runs. He hits 16 altogether. This 2014 ALDS, I attended games 1 and 2. Those are the 2 in Baltimore. I was 11 years ago. They don't win the World Series this year. I'll let you know that in case you don't remember 2014. I haven't yet attended better sporting events than those 2 playoff games. Nothing in my life as a live event has really surpassed those. It is, I cannot possibly convey how important to my emotional infrastructure as an Orioles fan games 1 and 2 of the 2014 ALDS are. I don't know that I would still be with this team if not for those 2. To know that that is capable of the 2014 ALDS, which the Orioles win in 3 games over the Detroit Tigers, sweeping them before getting swept by the Kansas City Royals in the single worst series of my entire life against the single most hated roster in any sports year for me ever. Nelson Cruz is right at the core of this. He is a player that made, yes, 2012 was incredible. That year, the first time they made the playoffs, I didn't know how to feel. 2014 was the first time I ever looked at the Baltimore Orioles is this a team that I should expect to win on a day-to-day basis? And they, at one point, just started doing that. From the point that they were 30-29 forward, played a 108-win pace to close out the season, winning the East, winning that series against the Tigers. Yes, the Royals happened, but Nelson Cruz coming in out of nowhere as, of course, this is the one free agent hitter the Orioles get. Of course they go out and they get this scandal-ridden, steroid dude who lost them their 2nd round pick now, who's 33 years old already, hitting free agency at 33. Yeah, this is who they get. And then he just gives you a 40 home run season. What a year by Nelson Cruz.
was to your Orioles fandom as Marco Bellinelli was to my process era Sixers fandom.
I get that.
You would, because the similarities I'm drawing is like, we had the 16-game win streak to end the season. We added Bellinelli as a buyout guy. He had a stretch of like 20 points in a row for I think 8 or 9 games. And in that same vein of this guy was really, really good somewhere else. He's clearly past his prime, but maybe he has a little more. Maybe he's the missing piece. Maybe he's gonna hang around.
Now, you say past your prime there. And this is what I want to kind of finish out with Nelson Cruz. He is now just completed his age 33 season. The Orioles make a lot of choices that offseason. Not re-signing Nick Markakis at the time felt worse. Not re-signing Andrew Miller was probably a very big deal. Not re-signing Nelson Cruz, of all of them, it felt the most like, hey, we understood that was a transactional one-year thing. You signed that one-year $8 million deal in late February. That was we are going to bring you in here. I think we all kind of knew the deal from the beginning. It was not meant to be for Nelson Cruz sticking around. Because again, surely here at age 34, we're going to go down. And I will give Baltimore credit. They do eventually tie their wagon to Chris Davis, who bounces back. He leads the league in home runs again the next season. The Orioles do go for 4 full seasons of it. Do you happen to know the 4th one, just before we get back to Nelson Cruz? So it's Chris Davis, seasons. Nelson Cruz, Chris Davis, and then another Oriole for this 4th straight year in 2016.
Machado?
Mark Trumbo.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It was a weird
remember
year.
that. I do remember that being a thing.
So I mentioned Cruz 34. I'm going to tell you this just to start. Cruz has not yet played half of his career games after he finishes this 2014 season. From ages 34 to 37, he is playing under a 4-year, $57 million contract with Seattle. And at first, everyone's like, this is an overreaction. This is an overpayment. He plays 150 games at least every single one of those seasons. He averages, during that time, 4.3 B-WAR a season, just a hair under his career high prior to this in that 2014 year. And he averages just over 40 home runs a season during this time. 3 out of these 4 years, he is an all-star, making it now 6 total appearances for Nelson Cruz, with half of those coming after his 2nd free agent contract. And then he signs another one following year, a 1-year deal for $14.3 million with a team option. This one's in Minnesota, and for ages 38 and 39, Minnesota, he misses a little bit more time, and also there's COVID in 2020. He still puts together over these 2 seasons 6.2 total B-WAR, which particularly given the limiting games in 2020 when he receives even higher share of the MVP percentage than he did in 2014. He has received MVP votes 3 total years now, with all of them coming after 2014. And so in 2021, at the age of 40, he re-signs with Minnesota, earns his 7th All-Star appearance, and then as a midseason trade to Tampa Bay to be part of their playoff push and does make the playoffs. He does hit his 19th home run. And today I will say that has him still tied for 10th. The very next time Carlos Correa hits a playoff home run, he will surpass Nelson Cruz. But for the time being, Nelson Cruz, still technically a top 10 all-time postseason home run hitter. And that, he goes to Tampa as a midseason replacement. He does not stay in Tampa, but he signs as a 41-year-old with the Washington Nationals. Only puts up 0.1 B-WAR, but that means he is an above replacement player at the age of 41. Finally, with 42, he goes to San Diego, and this is his first negative season. The long stretch. He gets a couple more home runs to add to the career total, which is nice. But really, though, the negative 0.4 B-WAR that he puts up, you might think that's a bad note to finish on. I disagree, because I argue it is instead a performance art piece so that the 42-year-old Nelson Cruz can finish his career with an incredibly nice, exactly 42.0420 career B-WAR.
It's a very nice career B-WAR. I don't know what B-WAR is. I don't want to.
It's a baseball reference for it. There are 2. I'll say this to you and any listener who's always wondered why I specifically say that. So both Sports Reference and Fangraphs have their own WAR calculations. B-WAR refers to something coming from the Sports Reference family of websites, Baseball Reference specifically. F-WAR refers to anything coming from Fangraphs. They have slightly different calculation. They favor different things. That's all. I just go by Sports Reference. Shout outs to those good folks.
No, that's fair. I just like the .1 B War season. I'm just like, it means that in one of the games that you won, one of those innings, that was Nelson.
Yes,
You're welcome.
Yeah, that is the exact way to think about it. I say he retires with that. He does retire after the 2023 season. He retires officially as a Seattle Mariner, for what it's worth, which I think is interesting. You know, only has those 4 years there, but I agree. That is really when kind of the legend of Nelson Cruz builds. He goes home. He's still involved with the DR baseball scene. He has played in 4 different World Baseball Classics for them. But to go through the numbers one more time, from 24 to 32, prior to that 2014 season, 804 games, 12.1 B-WAR, a respectable 114 OPS plus. He's an above average hitter at that time and gets 2 All-Star appearances for his trouble with 157 home runs over that full span. From ages 33 to 42, so from that 2014 Baltimore season and after, he plays more than 400 more games, 1,251 altogether, during which time he accumulates nearly 29.9 B-WAR and 307 home runs, 5 All-Star appearances, 6 different instances in which he received at least 1 MVP vote. He is a 4-time Silver Slugger. He is a 1-time Roberto Clemente Award winner, and he is a 2-time Edgar Martinez Award winner, that being for the best DH. And all of that comes from his age 33 on season. From the age 33 on, the only players who have ever hit more home runs than Nelson Cruz: Babe Ruth, Henry Aaron. It's the end of the list for post-33 career home runs. And in case you thought that these counting stats were the only thing that was going up, even including the 2 actual decline years, he has a 140 OPS plus for that full back half. He is a significantly better hitter, including the decline years, for that whole second half than he was prior to it. And again, I say he retired as a Seattle Mariner. There is, I think, a big what if about if he had stayed with the team where he kind of revitalized this. Because you look at 2014, it's the first year that he has the majority of his starts at DH. It is the first year that he has a true all-star appearance that doesn't later get tainted. He'd been the replacement for Torrey Hunter. He'd gotten into the PED season. Now he's got a completely asterisk-free all-star appearance. It is the first time he gets MVP votes. It is the beginning of really one of the best second half. Yes, Adrian Beltre deserves all the credit in the world that he gets for being truly, I think, the greatest relative to first half, second half career ever. But Nelson Cruz should be considered right up there, as he rightfully is on the all-time DH leaderboard. And it would have been cool to see that be in Baltimore for a long time. But admittedly, because he had that elsewhere, it does mean that he is eligible for this category. And that is why I have the opportunity to present Nelson Cruz as my cameo guy this week.
So I love Nelson Cruz. Big fan. I like the guy that they just bring in to have, hit a home run. We don't really care what else you do. You can just chill in the dugout the whole time. As long as you have good vibes and you'll hit some home runs, you can play until you're 40 plus. And I just want all of those guys to continue, especially because, as a Yankee fan, we have 9 of those guys at any one time. So
you built
I always
the whole
have a
plane out of those guys.
We did. Giancarlo Stanton will be that guy for the next 7 years. And then we'll have Aaron Judge that guy for the last 4 years of his contract. So I love those kind of guys. Big fan of Nelson Cruz. Even, I've had to bend my rule on steroid and PED uses before for Bartolo. So, I can't really claim the same, hatred or be against someone who got caught in the same scandal as Bartolo. So
Bartolo initiated the investigation that caught him.
And also I love Melky Cabrera. So I had I can ignore that scandal for this one. I'll put my moral aside for that one. But yeah, big fan of Nelson Cruz. Like it a lot.
Welcome to the right side of history, Xavier. Drugs are good. No, I have nothing but respect for it. I do appreciate that all 3 of us have kind of taken us to be guys who had cameos with our team. Which I feel it's easier to conceptualize that because it's
yes. It was one where when we first presented the categories, Danny Green for me, not necessarily. He was someone that I had a lot of affection for, but he didn't fit the quality for me. But he was a player I was more tied into, and I think that's what it is. It has to be players where you followed their like social capital. You followed their
Right.
standing in the grand scheme of things, like how people felt for an extended period of their career, because you had to know when the one important one happened.
Right. And I mean, look, it's a shame Nelson didn't catch that fly ball, because if he did, like, he's probably in the Hall of Fame. Like, honestly, that could be the difference.
He would not fall off the ballot the first year. If he makes that catch, he wouldn't fall off the ballot the first year. I have a feeling he's probably going to fall off the ballot the first year in 2028, I guess.
Right. Because, I mean, yeah, he's over 400 career home runs, but, yeah, I mean, just a classic, like, Hall of Very Good player. Nelson Cruz is a Hall of Very Good player. Like, people always said that about Donovan McNabb. He's not a Hall of Famer. He's a Hall of Very Good. I feel like that's Nelson Cruz, Donovan McNabb. There's something there. I feel like that's a good analogous comparison.
He is the first guy off the podium for, like, greatest DHs of all time. And Donovan McNabb, I'm trying to think, he's probably the first guy off the podium for, like, best mobile, maybe not first guy off the podium for best mobile quarterback. Something, you got Lamar, you got Vic. Do you go Cunningham then? Do you go Tarkenton at 3? You don't go like, McNabb at 3.
Right. Well, you can look at it that way, and you can also look at it as, like, in McNabb's prime, it was like, he was clearly the third best quarterback in the NFL. It was Manning, it was Brady, and then you go down a few tiers, and at number 3 was Donovan. I would say from, like, 02 to, like, 06.
Right before Joe Flacco came and took that away, basically.
Before Joe Flacco, of course.
Well, that is a brief story of Donovan McNabb, and that has been the less brief, but still somewhat brief story of Nelson Cruz, and we sure do appreciate the folks who helped make that story possible. Those include producer Craig, the coders behind him, helped us with the recording, and our musical director, Don Ham, who gives us that lovely theme music every week. I am very appreciative, once again, of my partners in crime, but most of all, dear listener, we thank you for joining us for yet another Cameo Guy as we move towards litigation later on in season 14. If you want to catch up with any of the other ones, you can always find everything about this show at bit.ly/remember that guy, all one word, all lowercase. Any final notes on the way out here?
It's good that the Phillies got the bye. It would be bad if they didn't. I'm tired of people acting like it's a bad thing to get an auto win in the first round, because that's essentially what it is.
You want the chance to lose fewer games. That's
exactly.
It. That's math. That's analytics we can all get behind. And I can get behind the fact that I've been one of your hosts, James.
And I've been the very special guest, Xavier.
And I'm Diaz, and this podcast was recorded by some Gamma Psi Sammy guys. It's my first project when I have a house, is to level a portion of the backyard to have a cold plunge hot tub basketball court time machine.
The time machine part is I don't know how a contractor estimates that. Because I don't know how you can put a price on that. If you successfully make one, you've given someone the ability to recoup any possible loss ever. So what is the valuation as a contractor knowing you can extort essentially an infinite amount of money to make a time machine?
Well, it's also like the order in which I said those is also kind of like the order of feasibility. It's like cold plunge, anybody can have a tub with some cold water in it, some ice.
Yeah.
Hot tub, okay. It's like more energy to get that going, but it occurs in the same physical space. Basketball court, okay.
Basketball, not just hoop, court.
Yeah, basketball court, and then time machine. It's the entire spectrum of feasibility.
From the ice bucket challenge to quantum theory, I think, is time. I used to be it's wild how good at science and math I used to be when I was younger.
Well, when it was like relevant to your day to day.
Well, I mean, like when I was working at Hopkins, like there was a time in my life where I was just going to fall down and I realized I don't like this that much.
That was me with math too. And it's like, I think my hate of analytics goes back to my 9th grade geometry teacher being the person to turn me off math. Like I loved math until her, and now I fucking hate war.
This is also now the second set of outtakes I'm going to do in consecutive weeks where we talk about your deep-seated hate of analytics.